Alrighty, what is up guys, and welcome back to my channel. You're watching another episode of the daily series of Nwadei MMA, where I give you my opinions, but more importantly, ask for yours, as you guys are the MMA community, and this community is way too fast moving for me to keep up with it all on my own. So I need you guys. So if you have any thoughts or opinions about what I have to say today, then you're more than welcome to go ahead and leave a comment down below, sharing your thoughts and seeing where your thoughts match up to everyone else's. With that being said, today we're going to be talking about UFC 286 this weekend, headlined by Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards 3, co-main evented by Geathje versus Rafael, Fiziev, and so many more fights on this card that we gotta get into, gotta talk about, and gotta predict. So I will be giving you my in-depth fight analysis, breaking down each fight, and at the end of each breakdown I will give you my official prediction for that fight. However guys, with that being said, if you would like to support my content, then I urge you to smash the like button and give a thumbs up for this video. As some of you already know, my channel was taken down at 2,500 subscribers, and I'm trying to work my way to get back there. So if you would like to help me in doing so, then go ahead and smash that like button, as it does help to support me, your very loyal content creator. And you're more than welcome to subscribe to join my MMA journey and receive daily MMA content. Now with that said, let's get into the video. Alrighty guys, so starting off with the early prelims, I'm going to go ahead and make these prelims quick, and I'm going to take a little bit more time on the main card just because I think we're all a little bit more interested on the main card, and that's where we're looking to kind of hedge our bets. But for your kind of easy pickings and takeaways from the prelims, I'm going to go ahead and go over the fights that we know a lot about, and I'll also discuss the ones that we don't know a lot about and who you should or should not bet on if you're looking to do such a thing. I'm not that big of a fan of gambling, but I understand it. I understand where it comes from. And so starting off the early prelims, Juliana Miller is making her UFC debut after winning the Ultimate Fighter of season, I believe, 29, something like that, 30. And she's taking on Veronica Macedo, a girl who has lost about like 4 out of her last 5 fights, 2 or 3 coming by submission, 1 coming by knockout, another coming by decision. She has a submission win over Poliana Viana, which was a good win, but I just think that since she's been in the UFC, it's been a rocky road so far, and I think that Juliana Miller, she doesn't have that much experience, and that's why they're giving her this fight. Now, she's had a few amateur fights, probably like 5 or 6 amateur fights. I believe she went undefeated or something like that, and she was 3-1 as a pro going into the Ultimate Fighter. Had a couple fights there, as we all know, like 3 again, another 3 fights in which she impressed a lot of people. However, I think she did rely on her chin a little bit too much. I think she did just kind of come forward and kind of force people into the grappling exchanges, which can be dangerous both for her and for her opponent. However, going into this fight, I don't think Veronica really has that one-shot knockout power to really put Juliana away. She's shown a weakness in her grappling. However, she's also shown a strength in her grappling, and I think that Juliana Miller, she has that natural instinct to fight and that natural killer instinct to just walk people down and go get it, sometimes regardless of her own health. And I think that is going to be a key factor in her maybe getting the victory this fight. So if I were to be betting on this fight, I would go for Juliana Miller, just because I think this is her first fight in the UFC. I think the UFC is kind of lobbing her up a first win and to get some more experience, because this fight very well can go to decision. Again, it's a girl who hasn't done the best in the UFC so far, so I think that this could just be a setup fight for Juliana Miller. However, moving on to the next fight on the early prelims, we have Jai Herbert versus Ludovit Klein. I haven't seen too much of Klein. I've seen a lot more of Jai Herbert. Even in his loss against Ilia Topuria, he looked good. He looked like a world beater on the feet. I mean, there's a real stereotype with these British kickboxers. I mean, if you're British, a lot of times you know how to kickbox. British, English, however you say it. However, I think that, he's come up short in a lot of these UFC fights just because it's like he's winning the whole fight, and then it just seems like there's something that kind of goes wrong. But going into this fight, I think that it's going to be a little bit more of a controlled pace. While his opponent is really good, 8 submissions, 8 knockouts, he's very well rounded. I think that there's a lot of pressure on Jai Herbert, and that if he doesn't turn it around now, that this could be looking towards the end of his UFC career. However, Ludovic Klein with wins over Mason Jones and Devontae Smith. You know, speaking about the pressure going into this fight, being on Jai Herbert a little bit, I feel like while he is a good rangy striker and he knows how to use his range, he knows how to kickbox, I feel like Klein, being the shorter fighter, is going to be able to close the distance on Jai. Jai will have a lot of early success, but he tends to change his fighting style whenever he gets tired. You get into that third or second round with Jai Herbert, and he's a little bit different of a fighter than that first round. And I think that going against the shorter fighter Klein is going to be trying to push that pace, trying to get on the inside and stay on the inside. And I feel like he's also going to mix the grappling in, which can fatigue Jai as well. And with Klein being the younger fighter at 28 years old and Jai Herbert being 34, as far as cardio goes, I'm leaning more towards Klein. And, you know, I am more inclined, no pun intended, to choose the person who I think can battle better when they're tired than the guy who is maybe like a sparky striker, finisher kind of guy. So I'm going with Klein in this one. Let me know what you guys think. I really like Jai Herbert. I like his style, I like his technique on the feet. However, I just don't know if he's going to be able to get this one done against someone who's as well-rounded as Klein and someone with as much confidence right now, because Jai doesn't have that kind of confidence, being 1-1 in his last two. Now, with this next fight, Luana Carolina versus Joanna Calderwood, or well, Joanne Wood nowadays. You know, I think that I would say that Joanne Calderwood is the better martial artist. However, she's 37 now, man. She's 37. She's not getting any younger. She's experienced her ups and downs in her career. I mean, I believe her most recent loss was against Alexa Grasso, and she's lost her last three too, against Lauren Murphy and Tyler Santos as well. Of course, these are all people at the top of their division. You'll hear this from me pretty much every time, because confidence has a big role to play in fighting. 3-fight losing streak, her confidence has to be shot. 37 years old. That's not helping your confidence anymore. Lucena is a lot younger. She's what, 27, 26. Her last fight, she got knocked out by Molly McCann via spinning elbow. Yes, vicious, whatever, but she's had a lot of time to recover, a lot of time to try and get better, and I just think she's gonna be the better athlete in this one. So I'm gonna go with Lucena, but don't be surprised if Joanne Calderwood, you know, gets this one done. I wouldn't bet on this one just because I do feel like the older fighter is the better martial artist, and I don't like to bet on athleticism that much, but I do believe like Lucena is the better athlete, even though she isn't as experienced as a martial artist. And I do think that the better athlete will win this time around. Going into the next one with Jake Hadley versus Malcolm Gordon. Malcolm Gordon coming off that loss to Mohammad Mokaev, third round submission. It was actually a good fight up until that point. Mohammad Mokaev, he's been fighting some tough guys in this flyweight division. I mean, and he fights again on this card, which we will talk about his fight later. However, I think Jake Hadley gets this one done. Jake Hadley has shown to be a good submission artist, and I believe that Malcolm Brown has shown some weakness in that point. Not only that, but Hadley is 9-1. He is a very confident fighter. He's also the younger fighter, and while Gordon has faced the probably stiffer competition, I would say, I feel that age plays an even bigger factor the smaller you get. So like flyweights, for an example, their prime's gonna be more around like 28 to 32 rather than a heavyweight where his prime's gonna be anywhere from like 34 to like 40, just because the lower the weight class, the more technical, the more you need to rely on your technique and not your athleticism. You know, I believe that Jake Hadley, riding the momentum that he lost his first fight in the UFC, however, he got a win in the UFC, and that can be a big confidence booster, especially considering that he lost his first one by decision, made his adjustments, came back, got a win. Big confidence booster. I think that he might get this one done against Malcolm Brown. However, this is another close one that I'm not so sure I would bet on. To finish off the early prelims, we have a couple more close fights between Dusko Todorovic and Christian Leroy Duncan, former Cage Warriors champion, and Lerone Murphy versus Gabriel Santos. All of these guys are relatively new to the UFC. Leroy Duncan's making his UFC debut against Todorovic, and Todorovic, he's had some ups and downs in the UFC. He's predominantly a striker who likes to go for the finish, however, in the process has been finished himself. I think these are both close fights. Wouldn't really bet on these, but look out for the former Cage Warriors champion. I mean, technically still Cage Warriors champion. He hadn't lost. He's 5-0. Christian Leroy Duncan, and he had an impressive win in the final seconds to retain his title in Cage Warriors. So I'd say be on the lookout for Leroy Duncan. That these two last fights just might be some that you want to watch just for pure entertainment. Lerone Murphy and Gabriel Santos are both undefeated fighters, guys looking to take each other's like I said, I don't have a prediction for these ones. I've barely seen these guys, and I think it'd be unfair to you guys if I did give a prediction without actually knowing too much about them. So again, just tune into these fights, watch them, they'll be interesting. Now on to the prelims. Mohammad Mokaev is fighting on the prelims. You know, I'm surprised he's not fighting on the main card on this one. Yeah, he doesn't necessarily have that big of a name yet, but I feel like if you're trying to build him, if you're trying to help him accomplish his own dream in becoming the youngest UFC champion ever, then, you know, why not put him on the main card? Why not give him that exposure that a Kamaru Usman, Leon Edwards trilogy could give him? However, we're not talking about the promotion here. We're talking about the breakdown of this fight. If there are two fights that I would tell you that are reasonable to bet on these prelims, then I would tell you Mohammad Mokaev is a fighter to watch and probably bet on. Undefeated in the UFC, undefeated in general, a high-level martial artist, a high-level wrestler. I think he's going to be able to just kind of outwork this guy. I think that Jack Shore is another fighter to watch going against Makwan Amirkhani. Makwan, you know, he's been in the UFC a while. He's received a lot of damage. I think his chin's been gone for a couple of years now. Going against Jack Shore, not really a big puncher, but a guy who is gonna touch you up a little bit. He is pretty technical on the feet. He likes to get the fight to the ground a lot. And Makwan is a guy who primarily relies on his grappling for his finishing abilities. Yes, he can strike, but I feel like he just leaves his chin up in the air too much, which is why he's been clipped so much. I'm looking for Jack Shore to put him away. I'd probably say within the distance, because Makwan, I don't know if he can take a punch anymore. We're gonna find out. But for the prelims, those are the only two I'd really bet on. Given their previous fights, I'd say Jack Shore is a pretty sizable favorite in my opinion. I don't know how the odds are looking yet. I like to give my predictions before I see the odds. And Mohammad Mokaev, I would assume that he would be a favorite, but he might be a pretty sizable favorite. I'd predict Mohammad Mokaev one to go to decision over a finish. That might, you know, be able to hedge your bet a little bit better. Now, moving on to the main card. A lot of exciting fights, starting off with Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze, a guy who is a high-level grappler, a guy who has come a long way in his striking in his UFC run, but he's primarily a grappler, or at least that's, you know, what his credentials would have you believe. But the guy's just really good. The guy's really good. I feel like he came into the UFC a little bit late, but I feel like it might actually just be the perfect time, the right time, considering the streak that he's on. He's won 6 out of his 7 fights in the UFC. His only loss coming by decision. He's beaten guys like Phil Hawes, Jack Hermanson, and Kyle Dawkins as well, knocking out both Phil Hawes and Kyle Dawkins. And yes, he also TKO'd Jack Hermanson, but that's not what was impressive. What was impressive is the way he set everything up, the way he trapped him in that calf slicer kind of belly down, back flat just position. A ruthless position to be in and a position we don't see very often in MMA. However, being a high-level grappler that he is, I think that this is going to be a tough fight for Marvin Vettori. Vettori is a good grappler in his own right, and he's getting better with his striking. I mean, his boxing looked really good against Paulo Costa. However, a big reason for his striking looking so good is because he's constantly trying to put on that forward pressure, and he likes to enter into the grappling exchanges, whether it's just holding you against a cage, maybe holding you down on the ground, or just mixing it up to disengage and start striking again. However, against Roman Dolidze, where is he going to use is he going to have an advantage? Only place I'd really maybe have him having an advantage would be the close range boxing situation, maybe a little bit of the cage grappling and cage wrestling, because I haven't seen Dolidze there much, because who's going to try and grapple him? But I think that at range, Dolidze is a better striker. I believe that on the ground, Dolidze is the better fighter, and I can really see Roman Dolidze cracking into this top 5 with a win over Marvin Vettori. Even though Marvin Vettori's been at the top for a little while now, even though he's had a close fight with Israel Adesanya, even though he beat up Paulo Costa, I think that this is probably his tough test to date, other than Izzy, the champ, former champ. God, it still sounds weird to say. And so I think that you might actually see Roman Dolidze coming out on top of this one. I am going to be choosing Roman Dolidze. I think that he is a more active fighter. I feel like he's more active, like in pursuit of the finish, and I think that he has a better chance to finish this fight than Marvin Vettori. I feel like if Marvin Vettori wins this fight, it'll most likely be by decision. So I'm choosing Roman Dolidze. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. And let's move on. We have Jennifer Maia versus Casey O'Neill. King Casey, Queen Casey. Jennifer Maia, being 34 years old, recently just ended her 3-fight skid with a win over Mariana Moroz, I believe her name is, and going up against King Casey, a woman who's 9-0, undefeated, just got off of a victory retiring Roxanne Modafferi. And speaking about Roxanne Modafferi, I mean, she kind of brings a similar style to Jennifer Maia. Now, I don't think she was as big as Jennifer Maia, or at least as thick as Jennifer Maia. I feel like Jennifer Maia used a bit more hands than Roxanne Modafferi, and it slightly is the better athlete than Roxanne. However, I feel like the way King Casey beat Roxanne Modafferi by a unanimous decision, I feel like she can do the same thing to Jennifer Maia. I don't see why she can't. I mean, it's another grappler, or at least a person who's gonna try and grapple her. King Casey's young, she's talented. I don't see why she can't get this one done. However, talking about the more interesting fight, in my opinion, Gunnar Nelson versus Bryan Barberena. He was supposed to be fighting Danny Rodriguez, which is a little bit of a similar opponent. I don't think the strategy change was too big for Gunnar Nelson. Danny Rod primarily uses his hands. Bryan Barberena primarily uses his hands. Yes, they're different in a sense, but I think that's going to be the same game plan for Gunnar Nelson. He should be looking to use that traditional sideways kind of side kick kind of karate stance, looking to be in and out, let Barberena close that gap fast and look to shoot under for a takedown. Now, where we've seen a problem in Gunnar Nelson is his wrestling. He tends to fatigue too much in the wrestling after just kind of going too hard a little bit too early. So I feel like he should take his time in this fight. Maybe wait until you have a really good opportunity to shoot a takedown and just look to pick him out apart from the outside. However, Bryan Barberena, he's going to be bringing that pace. He's going to be bringing that pressure. I feel like he's going to try and close the distance relatively quickly. However, going against Gunnar Nelson, that leaves him opportunities to get into the grappling exchanges where he is best at. I don't see Bryan Barberena being able to survive if it hits the ground. Say if you have like 2 minutes on the clock, you have Gunnar Nelson on top of you. I feel like it's hard for anyone in the welterweight division to survive with a guy like that on top of them. However, with that being said, I feel like Gunnar Nelson, he's going to have to show me that he has a better gas tank than he's had in the past. He's going to have to show me that he's willing to push the pace a little bit better than he is. And he's going to have to show me a little bit better of his distance control. Hopefully, he's been trying to perfect that traditional karate stance rather than maybe switching to another thing. Because I think that actually works very well for his style. If he can keep people on the outside, keep peppering them from the outside and almost force them to overcommit or force them to really dart into range fast, then it makes it a lot easier on his wrestling since he isn't some world-class wrestler. So I think that if we see the best Gunnar Nelson that we've seen yet, that he'll be able to get it done against Bryan Barberena. But that if we don't, if we see a similar Gunnar Nelson to the one that we saw against Gilbert Burns or Leon Edwards, that it's going to be tough because Bryan Barberena, you know, he's no slouch in his wrestling defense. Yes, he might not be world-class there, and he's definitely not world-class on the ground, but if you allow him to get you tired, if you fatigue in that fight, it's going to be a long night going against Bryan Barberena. Now, if I'm picking a winner, if I'm picking someone who I'm going to put my money on, I'd be putting it on Gunnar Nelson. But yeah, he's disappointed me a little bit in the past. He is coming off a win against Takashi Soto, I believe his name is, where he did look good in getting a unanimous decision victory. But I think that there's a good chance he could look better in this one. he'll rely a lot less on his athleticism and maybe look to keep this one on the feet just for a little longer until there's a real opening for that takedown instead of just forcing it. So I will be choosing Gunnar Nelson on this one. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Have you guys bet on Gunnar Nelson before? Has he disappointed you? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down. I've had mixed results with Gunnar, but again, I'm sharing my thoughts, but I want your opinions, so let me know. Over getting into the co-main event, Justin Geathje versus Rafael Fiziev. Justin Geathje, a master of the leg kicks, a master of chaos, a master of pressure and being exciting. Also has really good takedown defense. Rafael Fiziev, a master at Muay Thai. I mean, something like over 200 Muay Thai fights, something like that. He is the kickboxing or Muay Thai coach over at Tiger Muay Thai. And I mean, he is just a ferocious animal. Everything he throws can finish someone if it lands clean. I mean, his body kicks to his leg kicks to his reflexes to his combinations. He is probably the most put together striker in this weight class right now. Definitely the most put together striker. I mean, you saw what he did to Brad Riddell, a guy who's a very notable kickboxer, and coming out of that city kickboxing gym, the way they were able to go back and forth, exchanging technique for technique, and then he just hits him with that spinning back kick to wobble him, to put him out. And then going in his last fight against Rafael dos Anjos, a guy who has really high level grappling, a guy who is gonna bring that pressure. That was probably one of the worst fights for Rafael Fiziev style wise. I think another bad fight for him style wise is like an Islam Mokaev or a guy like maybe like Beneil Dariush. People at the top of the division who have a grappling heavy style, I think can be a big problem for him. But going into this fight with Justin Geathje, a guy who's going to try and strike with him, I don't see anyone beating Rafael Fiziev in a striking battle. Bobby Green was the closest one to do it. He used a lot of hands, he used a lot of leaning away and cardio to his advantage. Rafael Fiziev kind of started to gas a little bit towards the end, but I think that going into this fight with Justin Geathje, it's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be a slugfest, but I can see Rafael Fiziev getting it done. I think that his defense, he's going to be very aware of all the leg kicks that Justin Geathje likes to slip in there. I feel like Rafael Fiziev has a better sense of range and angles than Justin Geathje, even though Justin is a very good striker. Don't get it wrong, don't get it twisted. I'm not hating on Justin Geathje or anything. He's a very good striker, one of the best leg kickers in the game, but I just feel like he leaves his chin on the platter just a little bit too much. He's a little too willing to get hit, and you can't be willing to get hit against a guy like Rafael Fiziev who can put you away with any of these shots. Not only that, but he doesn't also headhunt. He goes to the body just as much as he goes to the head, which is why he ends up with a lot of these finishes. So going into this fight, I feel like Justin Geathje has had his time at the top. I feel like Rafael Fiziev has been waiting right around the corner for a little while now. I think he's going to be hungrier, and I think that Rafael Fiziev is going to be able to get this one done, unless Justin Geathje implements a lot more of his wrestling, which I don't know if he's going to do just because of the way he fights and his style. So I do have Rafael Fiziev winning because I just don't think that you should strike with a guy like Rafael Fiziev. It's just not a good idea. Now moving on to the main event. Yes, the main event of the evening. Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards 3. So guys, I've talked a little bit about this. I've talked about how close this fight is and how close it will be. If you missed that video and you want to get my thoughts on that, then that is like one of my last uploads. I believe I did upload that one a couple of days ago, and this is what it looks like. So go watch that if you haven't gotten the chance to yet. But while this is a very, very close fight, I feel like Leon Edwards is dealing with one of the strongest minded individuals in the game. Someone who isn't gonna quit, someone who isn't really gonna fatigue. I mean, there's people who fatigue and you see it, and then there's people who fatigue and you'll never catch a whiff, like a Max Holloway, like Alexander Volkanovski, and like Kamaru Usman, or even Israel Adesanya. Have you ever seen him like gas? No. And it's less about the physical attributes, it's more about the mindset. And when we're talking about the mindset, it's, do you have the dog or do you not? In the last fight, Leon Edwards brought the dog out of himself. He's with his coach's help, of course. He was looking beaten, looking broken, but he wasn't broken. He ended up getting the win. He ended up setting him up for the head kick, knocking him out. Beautiful story for Leon Rocky Edwards. However, this time around, it's going to be different. It's going to be different because there's no elevation. It's going to be different because both of these fighters are just going to be scrapping for a longer period of time. That first round is going to get played out a little bit more. However, I feel like Kamaru is going to be a little bit more sensible and aware to Leon Edwards' grappling abilities. I feel like he'll probably wait a little longer before he starts implementing his grappling, just to wait until Leon gets a little bit, less fresh and a little bit less willing to pop back up on his feet. But he's going to be bringing the pressure. I think he's going to be bringing the pace. I think that Kamaru's best course of action here would be to try and box his way into the clinch, hold him up against the cage, let him wear out his arms and get a little tired those first 2 rounds going into the third, and then going into late second, third, fourth round, kind of take that Jan Blachowicz approach to where he takes down Leon Edwards. He stays on top of him, he just wears on him, lets him get back up, takes him back down, because I feel like the only skilled place that Kamaru Usman has an advantage in this is his wrestling. I feel like Leon Edwards slightly has the better grappling, like being on the ground. I feel like he has the better striking at range. So I feel like Kamaru Usman, he's going to have to try and close this distance. He's going to have to try and pretty much replicate the first fight minus the first round. And in order to do that, he has to do everything I just said. However, for Leon Edwards, if he wants to get this win, his keys to victory would be to use a lot more push kicks, a lot more leg kicks to try and disrupt the wrestling and timing of Kamaru Usman. I mean, lots of leg kicks, like oblique leg kicks, side kicks to the knee. Those are his best chance at keeping Kamaru off of him, because Kamaru doesn't have the best knees, and looking to set him up with some timed knees and elbows like he does so well, and that he did in the first fight. I don't know if many people realized it, but he timed a few good knees in there that Kamaru just didn't wilt to and didn't show that they affected him. But going into this one, yeah, closest fight of 2023 for sure. But I'm gonna go with Kamaru Usman, man. I feel like he's coming back with a vengeance. He hasn't talked much. Him and Izzy are kind of taking the same approach, talk less, do more. I feel like the pressure and the weight is off of his shoulders. I feel like he's just been able to put his nose down and grind. And I feel like it's a hard task to finish Kamaru Usman. It's a hard task to keep him off of you. And that we're really going to see how this fight plays out when both of these fighters are tired. And so far, when they've both been tired, I like Kamaru Usman in this fight. I think he has the heart and the willingness to push on more than Leon Edwards does. I think he's going to be able to get this win. With that being said, thank you guys for stopping by my video today. Let me know what you guys think about these predictions. What are your predictions? Let me know y'all's full card of predictions, or maybe some parlays that y'all are going to be trying to win some money on. Because guys, I'm always open to hear your guys' thoughts. So let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up to support my content, and you're more than welcome to subscribe for more daily MMA content and in-depth fight analysis. However, with that being said, y'all stay safe and y'all stay blessed. I'm out. Peace.